The wind whispered through the crystalline ruins of Zarakith Prime, carrying the dust of a dying civilization. Luna Rodriguez adjusted her environmental suit's thermal regulators, feeling the subtle vibrations of a world on the brink of final silence. Her quantum-enhanced scanning equipment cut through layers of atmospheric interference, revealing a landscape that told a story of profound devastation. The planet's surface stretched out before her like a massive broken mosaic. Fractured crystal spires that once reached toward the sky now lay scattered like the bones of forgotten giants. Each structure told a fragment of a tragic narrative, a civilization that had once touched the stars, now reduced to a whisper of its former glory. Luna's mission log scrolled silently across her helmet's display, cataloging decades of galactic abandonment. Zarakith biology was unlike anything humanity had encountered before. Crystalline-based life forms that had developed a complex symbiosis between organic matter and mineral structures. They had been renowned across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy for their advanced architectural and communication technologies. Now, only remnants remained. Automated systems running on the last dregs of power, maintenance protocols continuing their futile cycles long after their creators had vanished. Her scanning equipment picked up faint energy signatures from what appeared to be a central administrative complex. The building's external structure suggested it had once been a marvel of engineering. Interconnected crystal modules that could reconfigure themselves based on environmental and communication needs. Now, it stood as a testament to a civilization's collapse, its adaptive systems slowly dying like the last breaths of a wounded creature. Luna's preliminary reports would determine the fate of this world. Most exploration teams would have classified this as a dead planet, filed their reports, and moved on. But something about the Zarakith records in the Galactic archives had caught her attention. Inconsistencies that suggested their extinction was not as straightforward as official reports claimed. The environmental suit's quantum-linked communication system remained frustratingly silent. No signals, no responses, just the occasional ghost of a data packet that dissolved before it could be fully interpreted. Luna knew the statistics: 80% population loss, complete reproductive system collapse, total technological infrastructure failure. The Galactic Council had declared the Zarakith a lost species standard years ago, removing them from restoration priority lists. Movement caught her eye. A flicker of something that shouldn't exist. Her enhanced optics zoomed in, revealing a small maintenance drone struggling to complete its program task. It moved awkwardly, parts clearly damaged, yet still attempting to repair a section of crystal infrastructure. The drone's persistent motion was both beautiful and heartbreaking, a machine continuing its purpose long after its creators had disappeared. Luna's research had uncovered fragments of the Zarakith's final years. A plague, more sophisticated than any known biological weapon, had systematically destroyed their reproductive capabilities. Each generation became smaller, weaker, less capable of survival. The few remaining Zarakith had been scattered across isolated research stations and underground shelters, their hope dwindling with each passing solar cycle. Her scanning equipment began to compile a comprehensive planetary analysis. Atmospheric composition, geological stability, remaining infrastructure. Each data point told a story of gradual, systematic destruction. But Luna noticed something unusual in the background radiation patterns. Subtle variations that didn't match a natural extinction event suggested something more complicated had occurred. As the planet's twin suns began to set, casting long shadows across the crystalline landscape, Luna Rodriguez made a decision that would change everything. This was not just another dead world to be cataloged and forgotten. Something about the Zarakith called for a closer investigation, a mystery that demanded understanding. The last rays of sunlight caught the broken crystal structures, momentarily transforming the desolation into a breathtaking landscape of light and shadow. For a brief moment, one could almost imagine the world as it once was, vibrant, alive, full of possibility. Luna's hand hovered over the communication panel, knowing that her next report would be anything but routine. CSS resilience, she transmitted, her voice steady and clear. Prepare for comprehensive investigation. This mission just became complicated. The bridge of the CSS Resilience hummed with a quiet intensity that spoke of years of deep space exploration. Captain Rafael Hernandez studied the holographic display, his fingers tracing the intricate data streams from Luna Rodriguez's planetary survey. Something about the Zarakith world defied standard extinction protocols, a nagging inconsistency that had transformed a routine mission into a potential watershed moment for human exploration. "Enhance Sector 7 Alpha," he commanded, his voice cutting through the ambient noise of the bridge. The holographic display shifted, molecular structures and radiation patterns dancing in three-dimensional complexity. Senior Science Officer Maya Chen leaned forward, her augmented neural interface parsing data at speeds that would have been impossible just a decade earlier. "The radiation signatures are unusual," Maya murmured, her fingers dancing across quantum-responsive interface panels. Years of xenobiological research had taught her to recognize patterns that most would dismiss as background noise. The Zarakith planetary data contained anomalies that suggested something more than a simple extinction event. The ship's quantum communication array suddenly sparked to life, a burst of encrypted data streaming from Luna's ground reconnaissance. Most captains would have filed a standard report and continued their predetermined route. But Rafael Hernandez was not most captains. His career was built on moments of calculated risk, understanding that the greatest discoveries happened when exploration met intuition. Historical records painted a grim picture of the Zarakith civilization. Once spanning 3 spiral arms of the galaxy, they had been technological pioneers. Their crystalline biology allowed for adaptive technologies that most species could only dream of, living architecture that could reconfigure itself, communication networks that function more like living organisms than mechanical systems. The Galactic Council's official report was brutally simple. A targeted biological agent had systematically destroyed the Zarakith's reproductive capabilities. Each successive generation became weaker, smaller, less capable of survival. Within 3 generations, the species would be extinct. Standard protocol dictated non-intervention, a cold calculation of resource allocation that made many human explorers uncomfortable. "Captain," Maya's voice cut through his thoughts, "I'm detecting subtle quantum entanglement signatures in the planetary background radiation. These aren't natural decay patterns." Her neural interface projected a complex visualization that looked more like an intricate piece of living art than scientific data. Raphael studied the display, years of experience telling him something significant was hidden within these molecular whispers. The Zarakith weren't just another lost civilization. They were a mystery waiting to be unraveled. The bridge crew watched in hushed anticipation as Luna's next transmission began to take shape. Her environmental suit's data stream revealed microscopic variations in the planet's atmospheric composition, subtle shifts that suggested ongoing biological processes where there should be only sterility and decay. "Prepare primary investigation protocols," Raphael ordered, his decision made. The crew moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine, decades of training condensing into moments of focused action. Specialized reconnaissance drones began their pre-launch sequences, each one a marvel of human engineering, designed to navigate environments that would destroy conventional exploration equipment. Maya's analysis continued to reveal layers of complexity. The planetary data suggested a sophisticated containment mechanism, as if something was being deliberately preserved rather than allowed to die. It was a theory that would be laughed out of most scientific conferences. But here, on the bridge of the Resilience, such possibilities were not dismissed but carefully examined. The ship's quantum drive hummed with potential energy. Raphael knew they were about to cross a line. To challenge the Galactic Council's declaration of Zarakith extinction would require more than scientific curiosity. It would demand absolute proof and an unprecedented level of diplomatic maneuvering. "Full sensor sweep," he commanded, "and prepare a comprehensive data package for immediate transmission. Whatever is happening on that planet, we're going to find out." The bridge crew exchanged glances, a mixture of excitement and apprehension. They were about to do what no other species had attempted. Where others saw a dead world, they saw a challenge. Where others had abandoned hope, they saw possibility. Luna's voice crackled through the communication system, her transmission carrying an edge of controlled excitement. Initial ground analysis complete. You're not going to believe what I'm seeing. Captain Hernandez allowed himself a small smile. Their mission was about to become very interesting. The medical research bay of the CSS Resilience looked more like an advanced artistic installation than a scientific laboratory. Holographic displays swirled with complex genetic sequences, each strand a delicate dance of molecular information that told a story of systematic destruction. Diego Reyes stood at the center of this technological marvel, his hands moving through quantum-responsive projection fields as he analyzed the most complex biological puzzle of his career. The Zarekith genetic sample was unlike anything in human medical archives. Crystalline-based organic structures intertwined with molecular systems that defied conventional biological understanding. What had initially appeared to be a simple extinction event revealed itself as something far more sinister, a targeted genetic weapon of unprecedented sophistication. "This is no ordinary plague," Diego muttered, his neural interface parsing millions of genetic variations per second. The molecular patterns suggested intentional design, each genetic modification a carefully crafted instrument of biological warfare. Most species would have declared the situation hopeless, but Diego saw something else, a challenge that human scientific innovation had never encountered before. Captain Rafael Hernandez watched from the observation deck, understanding that this moment could redefine humanity's approach to xenobiological research. The Galactic Council's standard response to species-level threats was simple: containment and isolation. But humans had always been different. Where others saw an insurmountable problem, they saw a puzzle waiting to be solved. Diego's team worked in near-silent concentration. Advanced medical manites danced across holographic representations of Zarekith genetic structures, probing, analyzing, attempting to understand the intricate mechanisms of destruction. Each breakthrough came with more questions than answers. The genetic weapon was a masterpiece of biological engineering. It didn't simply kill, it systematically dismantled the Zarekith's reproductive capabilities with surgical precision. Generational genetic markers showed a progressive breakdown, each successive generation losing more of its ability to reproduce, to heal, to survive. "Look at this," Diego called out, expanding a molecular sequence that filled the entire research bay with its complexity. The genetic modifications aren't random. They're a deliberate, staged process of genetic erosion. His fingers traced intricate pathways that showed how the weapon targeted specific genetic sequences, slowly rendering the entire species unable to continue. Luna Rodriguez entered the research bay, her environmental suit still carrying traces of Zarekith planetary dust. Her preliminary ground reports added another layer of complexity to the medical team's investigation. Automated systems on the planet's surface continued to function, maintenance protocols running long after their creators should have disappeared. "The preservation systems," Luna explained, highlighting data from her planetary survey. "They're not just automated maintenance. There's an intentionality to their operation. It's as if someone, or something, wants to maintain the potential for revival." Diego's team worked through multiple potential approaches. Traditional medical intervention would be useless against such a sophisticated genetic weapon. They would need to develop an entirely new approach to genetic restoration, something that could rebuild not just individual genetic sequences, but entire generational potential. The medical bay's quantum computer began running millions of potential intervention scenarios. Each simulation collapsed within moments, the genetic complexity proving too intricate for standard restoration protocols. But with each failure, the human research team gained more understanding. Captain Hernandez understood the stakes. This was more than a medical challenge. It was a test of human scientific capability. The Galactic Council would be watching, expecting the standard response of non-intervention. But humans had never been good at accepting impossible challenges. "We're going to need something unprecedented," Diego announced, a spark of determination in his eyes. The team around him nodded. They were no longer just conducting a medical investigation. They were attempting to resurrect an entire civilization. As the ship's systems continued to analyze the Zarakith genetic data, something extraordinary began to emerge. Subtle patterns, almost like a complex musical composition, suggested that the genetic weapon might have an intentional weakness. A single, carefully constructed intervention could potentially unravel its entire destructive mechanism. Diego looked up, meeting Captain Hernandez's gaze. No words were necessary. They both understood that they were standing at the precipice of something extraordinary. A chance to challenge the very definition of what was possible in xenobiological restoration. "Prepare for advanced genetic reconstruction protocols," Diego commanded. The impossible challenge was about to become humanity's next great scientific adventure. The Galactic Council's central chamber pulsed with holographic representations from 100 different worlds. Translucent figures of alien diplomats flickered with an intensity that spoke of centuries of bureaucratic calculation. At the center of this cosmic storm stood Elena Rodriguez, humanity's lead diplomatic envoy, her presence a singular point of defiance against a tide of institutional indifference. Holographic displays cascaded with data, economic projections, species survival statistics, resource allocation models. Each screen told a story of calculated abandonment. The Zarakith had been deemed a lost cause, their potential for recovery mathematically improbable. Most species would have accepted this clinical assessment. Humans, however, operated on a different fundamental principle. "The resource allocation for a full genetic restoration is unprecedented," thundered Corell, the Vox Imperium's senior diplomatic counselor. His crystalline form shifted with barely contained frustration, multiple sensory tendrils vibrating with diplomatic anger. 17 trillion galactic standard resource credits for a species with less than 10,000 remaining individuals. Illogical. Elena Rodriguez stood her ground. Her presentation was a masterpiece of scientific passion and strategic brilliance. Behind her, a dynamic holographic display showed the potential technological and scientific advancements that could be gained from Zarakith genetic research. Each slide was a carefully constructed argument that transformed a humanitarian mission into a galactic opportunity. "This is not about simple preservation," she explained, her voice calm and precise. "The Zarakith represent a unique biological and technological paradigm. Their crystalline-based genetic structure could revolutionize medical and architectural technologies across multiple species." The chamber hummed with tension. Diplomatic representatives from various star systems began to calculate, to analyze, to reconsider. Humans had always been different. Where others saw limitations, they saw possibilities. The Quantum Accord's representative, a being of pure energy contained within a sophisticated environmental construct, spoke next. "The genetic complexity of the intervention exceeds standard restoration protocols by 427%. Probability of success, 0.3%. Elena smiled. Humans lived for those impossible odds. Behind the diplomatic maneuvering, the CSS Resilience continued its mission. Diego Reyes and his medical team worked tirelessly, their quantum computers running millions of genetic restoration scenarios every microsecond. What appeared impossible to the Galactic Council was simply another technical challenge to human scientists. Communication networks blazed with diplomatic exchanges. Some argued for immediate intervention, others for complete non-involvement. The Zarakith had become more than a species. They were now a political symbol, a test of galactic cooperation and humanitarian principle. Captain Rafael Hernandez monitored the diplomatic proceedings from the ship's strategic command center. He understood the larger game being played. This was about more than saving a single species. It was about challenging fundamental assumptions about survival, about potential, about the very nature of scientific intervention. "The economic models are clear," Elena continued, her presentation shifting to show potential technological spin-offs. Zarekith genetic research could unlock regenerative technologies that would benefit dozens of species. This is not a cost, it's an investment. The Vox Imperium's Corel found himself unexpectedly challenged. Humans had a way of transforming humanitarian missions into strategic opportunities. What began as a simple restoration project was becoming a complex diplomatic and scientific endeavor. Holographic voting indicators began to shift. Diplomatic representatives who had initially opposed the mission now found themselves reconsidering. The human approach, part scientific brilliance, part stubborn determination, was slowly changing the conversation. "We are proposing more than restoration," Elena concluded. "We are proposing the new model of galactic cooperation, a model where no species is considered expendable." The chamber fell silent. Something extraordinary was happening, a fundamental challenge to established galactic protocols. The humans were doing what they had always done, refusing to accept the impossible, seeing potential where others saw only limitation. Captain Hernandez's voice came through the diplomatic channel, calm and determined. "Preparation for advanced genetic restoration continues, with or without Council approval." The Galactic Council had just encountered humanity's most powerful weapon, an unbreakable combination of compassion, scientific innovation, and absolute determination. The medical research bay had transformed into a cathedral of scientific possibility. Quantum holographic displays danced with complex genetic sequences, each molecular strand a delicate thread in the most ambitious restoration project in galactic history. Dr. Kai Rodriguez moved with the precision of a surgeon and the imagination of an artist, his neural interfaces creating intricate molecular symphonies that defied conventional biological understanding. Zarekith genetic material was unlike anything human scientists had encountered before. Crystalline structures intertwined with organic molecular chains, creating a biological system that was part living organism, part computational matrix. The genetic weapon that had nearly destroyed the species was a masterpiece of destructive engineering, each modification carefully designed to systematically dismantle the Zarekith's ability to reproduce and survive. "We're not just repairing genetic damage," Kai explained to his team, his hands moving through quantum projection fields that transformed complex molecular data into three-dimensional landscapes of biological potential. "We're essentially teaching their genetic code how to heal itself." Advanced medical nanites swarmed around isolated genetic samples, each microscopic machine a precision instrument of molecular reconstruction. They worked not by brute force, but by understanding, decoding the intricate language of Zarekith genetic memory, identifying the subtle mechanisms of destruction, and developing targeted restoration protocols. The surviving Zarekith scientists watched in a mixture of hope and disbelief. Their own attempts at genetic restoration had failed for generations. Human scientific approach was fundamentally different. Where Zarekith saw a limitation, humans saw a complex puzzle waiting to be solved. Kai's primary breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. The genetic weapon wasn't just a simple biological agent. It was a sophisticated molecular program designed to progressively disable genetic reproduction. Each generation became less viable, more susceptible to genetic degradation. Most species would have seen this as an insurmountable challenge. But humans thrived on insurmountable challenges. "Look at this," Kai called out, expanding a molecular sequence that filled the entire research bay. A complex holographic representation showed how the genetic weapon systematically targeted key reproductive sequences. It was more than a biological attack. It was a precisely engineered genetic algorithm designed to ensure slow, inevitable extinction. Luna Rodriguez provided critical ground-based data from the Zarekith homeworld. Automated preservation systems continued to function with an intentionality that suggested something more than simple maintenance protocols. It was as if some hidden mechanism was waiting, preserving the potential for revival. The medical team worked in shifts that defied human endurance. Quantum computers ran millions of genetic restoration scenarios, each simulation providing microscopic insights into the complex genetic puzzle. What appeared impossible to other species was simply another technical challenge to human scientists. Breakthrough moments came in unexpected ways. A subtle molecular resonance pattern, almost like a complex musical composition, suggested a potential weakness in the genetic weapon's design. Kai's team discovered that the destructive algorithm had an inherent complexity that could be strategically unraveled. "We're not just restoring genetic potential," Kai explained during a transmission to the ship's command center. "We're essentially developing a genetic immune response that can recognize and neutralize the original weapon's mechanism." The Zarakith survivors watched their own genetic restoration unfold, a process that merged advanced human scientific methodology with the unique crystalline biological structures of their species. It was more than medical intervention. It was a radical reimagining of genetic potential. Captain Rafael Hernandez understood the larger implications. This wasn't just about saving a single species. It was about challenging fundamental assumptions about biological restoration, about potential, about the very nature of genetic intervention. As molecular chains began to stabilize, as genetic sequences started to show signs of self-repair, something extraordinary emerged. The Zarakith genetic code wasn't just being restored, it was being transformed. The human intervention was creating a more resilient, more adaptive genetic structure. Kai looked up, meeting the hopeful gaze of the Zarakith scientists. No words were necessary. They both understood that they were witnessing something unprecedented. The resurrection of a civilization, one molecular strand at a time. "Prepare for advanced genetic stabilization protocols," Kai commanded. The impossible was becoming reality. Massive fabrication units descended from the CSS Resilience, transforming the Zarakith landscape with a precision that bordered on poetry. Julian Park led the engineering team, converting ruined infrastructure into adaptive, living systems that seemed to breathe with potential. Where other species saw a dead world, the humans saw a canvas of infinite possibility. The first challenge was understanding the Zarakith's unique technological paradigm. Their infrastructure was unlike anything in galactic archives, a complex symbiosis between architectural design and living systems. Crystal spires that were not just buildings, but near-sentient structures capable of environmental adaptation, communication, and self-repair. "We're not rebuilding," Julian explained to his team. "We're reimagining." Quantum-responsive fabrication drones moved across the planetary surface, their molecular-level sensors reading the remnants of Zarakith infrastructure. Each broken crystal structure told a story, a fragment of a civilization's technological language that humans were now learning to speak. The surviving Zarakith engineers worked alongside the human team, their knowledge combining in ways that defied traditional collaborative models. Modular design concepts merged with crystalline adaptive technologies, creating infrastructure that was part engineering marvel, part living organism. Solar collectors rose from broken ground, their design a perfect fusion of human efficiency and Zarakith adaptive capabilities. Quantum communication networks sparked to life, weaving through the planetary landscape like neural networks. Automated reconstruction drones worked tirelessly, each movement a calculated dance of restoration and innovation. Julian's team discovered that Zarakith technology was more than mechanical systems. Their infrastructure contained complex biological algorithms, communication pathways that function more like living organisms than traditional technological networks. It was a fundamental reimagining of what technology could be. "Look at this," he called out, projecting a holographic representation of a partially restored crystal spire. The structure seemed to pulse with an internal energy, molecular components shifting and adapting in real time. It's not just responding to environmental conditions, it's anticipating them. Captain Rafael Hernandez monitored the reconstruction efforts from the ship's strategic command center. This was more than technological restoration. It was a comprehensive revival of a civilization's technological potential. The quantum communication networks revealed unexpected complexities. Fragments of stored data began to emerge. Cultural archives, technological repositories, scientific research that had been preserved in the most extraordinary ways. Each discovery was a window into a civilization that had been on the brink of total extinction. Zarakith preservation systems, which had continued to function long after the species should have disappeared, now worked in concert with human technological approaches. It was as if some hidden mechanism had been waiting, preserving the potential for revival. Renewable energy systems were integrated with the planet's unique crystalline geological structures. Wind turbines became living extensions of the landscape, solar collectors that mimicked photosynthetic processes, energy storage systems that were more organic than mechanical. "We're not just restoring technology," Julian explained during a transmission to the ship's command center. "We're creating a new technological paradigm that merges human innovation with Zarakith adaptive capabilities." The engineering team worked through challenges that would have defeated other species. Quantum-responsive materials were developed that could adapt to the unique crystalline biological structures of the Zarakith infrastructure. Each breakthrough was a testament to human scientific innovation. Preservation systems that had maintained a planetary infrastructure for decades began to reveal their true complexity. They were not simple maintenance protocols, but sophisticated adaptive systems that had been waiting, preserving the potential for a civilization's revival. As technological systems came online, something extraordinary began to emerge. The restored infrastructure was more than a collection of mechanical systems. It was a living, adaptive network that seemed to breathe with potential, with hope. The first fully restored crystal spire rose from the planetary surface, a beacon of possibility. It was more than a building. It was a symbol of what could be achieved when scientific innovation met unbreakable determination. Julian looked out across the transformed landscape, meeting the hopeful gaze of the Zarakith engineers. No words were necessary. They both understood that they were witnessing something unprecedented. The resurrection of a civilization, one technological system at a time. "Prepare for advanced infrastructure integration protocols," Julian commanded. The impossible was becoming reality. The Galactic Council's central chamber descended into a maelstrom of holographic tensions. Diplomatic representatives from 100 worlds flickered with barely contained fury, their collective disbelief focused on a single point: the human delegation's audacious restoration of the Zarakith civilization. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of this cosmic storm, her presence a singular beacon of unwavering resolve. Behind her, a comprehensive holographic display showcased the unprecedented transformation of the Zarakith world. Genetic restoration, technological resurrection, a civilization brought back from the absolute brink of extinction. Corel of the Vox Imperium rose first, his crystalline form vibrating with diplomatic rage. 17 trillion resource credits, he thundered, multiple sensory tendrils quivering with calculated indignation. Expended on a species with less than 10,000 remaining individuals. This defies every established protocol of galactic resource management. Valena's response was a masterpiece of strategic eloquence. "We did not just restore a species," she began, her voice cutting through the chamber's tension. "We developed breakthrough genetic restoration technologies that will benefit dozens of civilizations. We created adaptive infrastructure systems that redefine our understanding of technological potential." The quantum projection displays behind her came alive with data. Each graphic told a story of scientific breakthrough. New medical technologies derived from Zarakith genetic research, adaptive infrastructure systems that could revolutionize planetary reconstruction, communication technologies that merged biological and mechanical systems in unprecedented ways. Representative Zin of the molecular consensus, a being of pure energy contained within a sophisticated environmental construct, analyzed the data with algorithmic precision. "Scientific potential confirmed," the representative stated. "Technological innovations exceed initial restoration investment by 427%. Captain Rafael Hernandez watched from the strategic observation deck, understanding the larger game being played. This was more than a diplomatic confrontation. It was a fundamental challenge to galactic thinking about species preservation, about potential, about the very nature of collective responsibility. The human delegation presented a comprehensive report that transformed a humanitarian mission into a strategic opportunity. Each slide was a carefully constructed argument that demonstrated how the Zarakith restoration was not a cost, but an investment in collective galactic potential. "We are proposing more than restoration," Elena continued. "We are proposing the new model of galactic cooperation, a model where no species is considered expendable." Diplomatic indicators began to shift. Representatives who had initially opposed the mission now found themselves recalculating. The human approach, part scientific brilliance, part moral determination, was slowly changing the conversation. The Zarakith survivors watched from a separate diplomatic chamber, their presence a living testament to the mission's success. Genetic restoration had not just saved their species, it had transformed them. Their scientists stood alongside human researchers, a visual representation of collaborative potential. Krell attempted another diplomatic offensive. The resources could have been used for more established species, more predictable restoration efforts. Elena's response was surgical. Predictability is the enemy of innovation. Every species contains unique genetic and technological potential. By saving the Zarakith, we've unlocked technologies that will benefit countless civilizations. The holographic displays transformed, showing the broader implications. New medical technologies that could revolutionize genetic treatments. Adaptive infrastructure systems that could help planets recover from environmental catastrophes. Communication technologies that merged biological and mechanical systems in unprecedented ways. Captain Hernandez's voice came through the diplomatic channel, calm and determined. "Restoration continues, with or without council approval." The chamber fell into a profound silence. Something extraordinary was happening. A fundamental challenge to established galactic protocols. The humans were doing what they had always done, refusing to accept the impossible, seeing potential where others saw only limitation. Representative Zin's energy construct pulsed with a rare indication of what might be interpreted as respect. Probability of successful long-term restoration, 98.7%. Technological innovations, exceeding all projections. The Galactic Council had just encountered humanity's most powerful weapon, an unbreakable combination of compassion, scientific innovation, and absolute determination. Elena Rodriguez looked out across the chamber, knowing they had done more than save a species. They had changed the fundamental understanding of what was possible. 50 years after the initial intervention, the Zarakith world pulsed with a vibrancy that defied its previous fate. Crystal spires rose toward twin suns, living testaments to a civilization reborn. The landscape was a perfect fusion of restored indigenous technology and human collaborative innovation, a blueprint for galactic restoration that would be studied for generations. Dr. Raphael Chen, grandson of the original mission's lead scientist, walked through the central research complex. Holographic displays traced the incredible journey of restoration, from near-total extinction to a thriving, innovative civilization. Each display told a story of scientific breakthrough, of human determination that had transformed the impossible into reality. The Zarakith had become more than survivors. They were now pioneers of a new model of galactic cooperation. Their unique crystalline-based biological and technological systems had revolutionized multiple scientific fields. Medical technologies derived from their genetic restoration helped dozens of species address complex genetic challenges. Adaptive infrastructure systems developed during their reconstruction were now standard for planetary rehabilitation projects. It was never just about saving a species. Elena Rodriguez, now a senior diplomatic advisor, would often say. It was about challenging our understanding of potential. The first generation of restored Zarakith worked alongside human researchers in ways that redefined interspecies collaboration. Their biological communication systems, once on the brink of extinction, now formed the basis of revolutionary quantum communication technologies. Research stations across 3 spiral arms bore witness to their innovative capabilities. Captain Miguel Rodriguez, nephew of the original mission's commander, now led a new generation of exploratory vessels. The CSS Resilience had become a symbol of human scientific and humanitarian potential, a living reminder that no species should be considered expendable. Zarakith cities were marvels of adaptive architecture, crystal structures that could reconfigure themselves based on environmental conditions, communication networks that function more like living organisms than mechanical systems. Each building, each technological system told a story of resurrection and potential. The galactic scientific community had been fundamentally transformed. The successful restoration of the Zarakith challenged every established protocol of species preservation. Universities across multiple worlds now taught the mission as a landmark example of innovative scientific intervention. Diplomatic protocols evolved. The Galactic Council, once resistant to the human approach, now incorporated comprehensive restoration strategies into their standard operating procedures. The concept of expendable species became a relic of outdated thinking. Dr. Chen paused before a memorial that stood in the central plaza of the restored capital. It was a simple structure, a fusion of human and Zarakith design, crystal and metal intertwined in a way that symbolized their collaborative journey. The inscription, written in multiple languages, captured the essence of their transformation. Where others saw an end, humans saw a beginning. The surviving members of the original restoration mission were now honored across multiple worlds, not as conquering heroes, but as pioneers who had fundamentally changed how galactic civilizations understood survival, potential, and collective responsibility. Zarakith scientists had become leading researchers in multiple fields. Their unique perspective, shaped by near extinction and resurrection, brought innovative approaches to challenges that had stumped other species for generations. Quantum communication, adaptive biological systems, regenerative technologies, their contributions were reshaping scientific understanding. The human approach had proven something fundamental. Potential was not defined by current circumstances, but by the ability to imagine, to innovate, to persist. Elena Rodriguez, now in her late 70s, often reflected on the mission. We didn't just save a species, she would tell young diplomats and scientists. We demonstrated that compassion is the most advanced form of strategic thinking. The CSS Resilience, now a museum ship, stood as a testament to a mission that had changed everything. Its halls told the story of how humanity had refused to accept the concept of a lost cause, how they had seen potential where others saw only limitation. As twin suns set on the restored Zarakith world, the crystal spires caught the light, a living reminder of a civilization reborn. Not through conquest, not through technological superiority, but through an unbreakable combination of scientific innovation and fundamental compassion. The legacy of the mission was not just about the Zarakith. It was about redefining what was possible when a species refused to accept the impossible.